everyone, I'm Lisa.
And I'm Nick.
And you're listening to It Takes Two, the podcast where two people take two movies with the same plot or premise and watch and discuss them.
And in this episode, to celebrate the month of my birth, Lisa was nice enough to arrange some movies that I enjoy. So we watched 2012's Lockout and one of my personal favourites, 1981's Escape from New York.
So these are two action movies, very stupid action movies, but action movies about former government tough guys who have just been arrested conveniently at a time when a member of the first family in the United States has been somehow kidnapped within a maximum security prison and held hostage, and they have to go in and get them out.
Yeah. That's pretty accurate, yeah. So that was the end of the episode.
Yeah.
Thank you, we've discussed everything. I loved John Carpenter's work. And, Escape from New York and LA are absolutely fantastic movies. And it's the legacy of the Kurt Russell's character extends further out because as I found out while we were watching Lockout. Yeah. See, it's COVID has screwed up my brain. Any starting with lock is always down afterwards. That the original idea was not so original, and therefore he had to pay Besson had to pay a massive fine because it was like
it wasn't a fine.
Original idea, do not steal.
This marks the first time we've covered an episode where
it's plagiarism.
Yeah, where the director of one of the movies sued the director or producer of one of the other movies for plagiarism and won the lawsuit. Yeah. So, so it's just this is just straight up plagiarism, but it's Escape from New York in the space. So, an original idea. I just love that he literally wrote the words "an original idea" multiple times
in the credits. Yeah,
it's just okay, Luke, you're
clearly stealing.
Yeah.
It's interesting because on top of that, you also have Hideo Kojima, who used Snake Plissken as his idea for Solid Snake for the Metal Gear Solid series.
He's very open about that, though. Yeah. That he was inspired by it and loved it, whatever. It's Luc Besson going, original idea, guys. This is original. No one's ever done this before, and it's like you're ripping off multiple things straight from this movie.
Yeah, it's very Sonichu.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So let's jump in. So the main thing that I find very interesting about these two movies is you get, obviously one of them is set in the past for us now.
For us, yeah. They're both set in the distant future.
Yeah.
The distant future of 1997.
Yeah. In Escape from New York. And it's interesting because you see in both these movies there is a sort of borderline accelerated concept that a lot of people are sort of trying to let people know there's a really bad idea, which is the military-industrial complex. And it shows in Lockdown a lot more than it does in Lockout. I'm going to keep doing that. Lockout more than it does in Escape from New York, but Escape from New York also has some alternate history sort of concepts in there. Yeah. But yeah, this prison in Lockout is run by Americans, yet is funded by basically the world governments. So every world government can send prisoners to this facility. The president's daughter is there investigating the claims that it is actually the prisoners are being treated as guinea pigs for deep space exploration.
Yeah.
Because obviously there's no law in space other than the laws that were written, I think, at the beginning of the space race. And it's a very interesting, the movie itself is arguably terrible, in a great way. But yeah, it's very interesting because it's like even like the space shuttle system still is running, which is very different from what we're doing currently because it is not very cost effective anymore. They have, you know, prototype weapons paid by Lockheed, like mentioned in it. The fact that, yeah, like I said, it's run by America, even though everybody pays for it, which is very much a mirror of the current space exploration that is currently happening now. You know, and versus in New York, Escape from New York, where you have the Twin Towers still existing.
Yeah, and you
even
have
though it's 97, but still.
A movie where it opens with Air Force One being hijacked by terrorists and they crash it into Manhattan. And I was like, someone give someone some ideas here.
And
forget Kermit the Frog. Maybe Kermit the Frog caused
oh my god,
Escape from New York to be made. Kermit the Frog inspired John Carpenter to make Escape from New York, and then the people who they saw that happening and went, oh, you know, we can crash a plane into Manhattan.
So as I mentioned previously, this is a little bit of context for people who don't know as much about the history of the late 80s as I do, who was a child of the late 80s. Chernobyl, which was the very famous nuclear disaster that happened in Ukraine, which was at that time part of the Soviet Union, was one of the major catalysts for the collapse of the Soviet Union, because it made them look weak in the world sort of view. They obviously needed help from outside. It was it's coming to the end of sort of Soviet cost cutting, and if that hadn't have happened, there's a debate that the Soviet Union wouldn't have collapsed when it did. And in 97, in Escape from New York, the Soviet Union is still a thing, which is not, because I think
they're very much still fighting the Cold War.
Yeah, they're still fighting the Cold War. Because I can't remember, was it 92?
What?
When did the Cold War, the Iron Curtain come down?
I don't know. Was it around the same time as Berlin Wall? Because that was 89, I think, or 1990.
I'm just going to Google it here. You keep talking while I find this. The fall.
I don't know what you wanted to talk about. I don't want to distract from this history lesson people are getting about the Cold War and the fall of the Soviet Union, which is all very relevant to these movies.
So like you get this sort of alternate history, sort of still playing out. So 91, I was close. It was 91. Was the actual collapse. So you get this.
I brought it down with my birth.
I'm pretty sure nuclear reactor number 4 exploding did it, but okay, if you say so.
It was me.
It was you.
You like to take credit for Chernobyl with your birth, so.
I don't take. Why am I taking credit for like a horrible disaster that
Every time you try to tell the story of your life, you start off by talking about Chernobyl, even though it's unrelated to your life.
It's not unrelated, because it shows these bloody 19-year-old people that I've interacted with on 19 to 17-year-old people I've interacted with during work. Just like a concept of the world they don't understand. I worked with someone who was born after 9/11.
Yeah, that's frightening.
That's terrifying to me. I'm old. We're all getting old, folks.
It reminds me that have you seen that meme and it's someone's Tinder profile or something and it says he's 23 but the photo is him with the Twin Towers behind him? And someone was like, what are those buildings got to do with anything?
Just like everything.
It's like, oh no.
Anyway, back to the movies. Absolutely fantastic soundtrack out of Escape from New York. No, you don't agree?
It's just the same bit of music over and over and over again.
It's fantastic.
And it's just
so
like
iconic.
Boom, boom,
Yeah, exactly.
That's it. That's not iconic. It's the exact same soundtrack as The Thing.
Yeah, which is all part of like.
It's not iconic. If it was iconic, you'd hear that music and go, "Oh my god, that's Escape from New York." If I just heard someone go, "Doo doo," I'd be like, "Oh, what's it, Law and Order?"
Sorry, if I hear that music, I know exactly what it's from. Don't give me the sassy
face. You just agreed with me that the same music is used in The Thing.
Yeah, because it's all about.
So you wouldn't know which one it's from.
It's not the exact same song, but if we were sitting there and you were playing, what was that game we used to play, which was just like a couple of seconds on your phone?
Heardle?
Yeah, I would know exactly.
The audio version of Wordle?
Yeah, I would know exactly that it was John Carpenter music.
Yeah, but would you know which movie it was from? From 5 seconds of John Carpenter music, would you be able to tell which John Carpenter film it was from? Well, I mean, you would if it was like Halloween.
Yeah.
But, like...
His music style is iconic.
Sure.
And this is a hill I will die on.
Okay.
Because you've never seen either of these movies. One, for obvious reasons, because, like, who the hell has heard of Lockout?
Oh, I mean, I've heard of it because it's been sitting on your DVD shelf since we moved in together.
Yeah, fair. And it's like at eye height. It was cover is very...
Yeah, very prominent lettering on it. So it's like, I look at the DVD shelf and the first thing I see is Lockout every time. And now I know what it's all about. You know? I've seen it. I was expecting Escape from New York to be better because I hear people talking about it a lot. I thought it was going to be a good film.
Well, this is the end of the podcast, folks, because it's also the end of our relationship. It was nice.
How often do you end our relationship on the podcast?
When else do you throw shade at crap that is like part of my...
It's not even a good movie. I don't get it.
Get out.
But
Get out of the room.
Because I was open to it because I've only seen a handful of John Carpenter things. And we discussed this before because we did like a Twitter thing, and one of the things was your favorite John Carpenter movie, and I think we put up Escape from New York, did we? Because it was your favorite.
Yeah.
Whereas my favorite is The Thing, and I would say after watching Escape from New York, my favorite is still The Thing. It wasn't very good.
Wow.
What do you love about it?
Everything. From the music. To the dialogue, to the crazy overacting of some of the extra, like the no-name cast members.
Well, it just felt like
the random assortment of like very post-apocalyptic versus industrial, military-industrial complex, like the showing of one side living with excess and the other side living with just basic survival needs. And the concept that you could just be in such a horrifically fascist state that when you commit crimes that the state deems so bad that you don't get a sentence, you just get exiled. And I know, unfortunately, in this day and age, there are countries out there in the world that still punish people like this. And, without going into too much detail, Australia does it.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. I thought you were going to talk about, far off countries, and I was going to be like, Australia.
Yeah, Australia. You get this what they're doing in China is really bad. Obviously, North Korea is literally insane. Punishing generations of your families for crimes, just absolutely bananas. For people like us, you being obviously there was a big thing for your country for ages of, and when you had Ireland controlled by the English,
800 years of oppression.
Yeah, and obviously. There was times it was very similar where, Australia at one point in time was New York.
Yeah, for Irish people being sent.
Yeah, you were just like, oh, you committed a crime.
Go to Australia, get out of here. Yeah, that's why there's conspiracy theories that Australia doesn't exist. It was just code for. I was gonna say sending them to the shadow realm. You know what I mean? Like the way that was. But that was an American code thing, because that, like, in, like, the Japanese cartoon, they're just straight up killed.
Yeah.
And in America, they're like, no, we can't tell children that we killed people. No, they were sent to the Shadow Realm.
Yeah.
So, like, there's conspiracy theories that that's what Australia is. That it's just like, oh no, they're not dead. They're just gone to Australia. They're just over in Australia, living and working there. Australia's a real place. You can never visit there. It's too far away.
Yeah, and that's where you get Mad Max, because that's literally what Australia was like. Just bands of dudes in face masks and leather, driving sports cars around.
Definitely what they sent the Irish criminals to.
Yeah, you just get this really, and it shows up more, which you'll learn very shortly in Escape from LA. But this,
Spoiler.
Okay.
As in, like, you've spoiled what our next episode is.
Oh yeah, sorry. And you get this insane for America, like for that era of the Americas and their super freedom, like trying to be as least fascist as possible because they were basically fighting fascists, and it's like anybody who believed in a shared economy and this, that, and the other was deemed a communist.
Yeah.
And then you see it, and it's like the ultimate fascist state that sort of America is now kind of evolved into in a way, because you have, the history of America and the real since I'd say Bill got out of office.
Well, they John Carpenter wrote Escape from New York in 1974.
Yeah.
In response to the Watergate scandal.
Yeah, which is the real reason for 9/11.
Right.
It's Nixon's fault.
Yeah, I'm Kermit the Frog. And, so they didn't know studio wanted to pick it up at the time because it was too violent. And then he made he made the first Halloween movie, I think, and then they were like, oh, people actually want to see this shit, okay. That's fun. But it's Carpenter stuff.
It's the same with, like, Deadpool.
What is?
Because that was stuck in development hell for ages because no one wanted to make a R-rated superhero movie because no one would watch it.
Yeah.
And then it was super successful, and then Logan came out, which is, in my opinion, better than Deadpool.
Yeah.
And it's one of the most iconic movies of that entire genre, let alone...
Yeah. We talked about it a little bit with Avatar as well, that, like, no one would... our Avatar episode, it was both Dances with Wolves and Avatar were movies that were in production hell for ages because studios wouldn't fund them.
Yeah. Well, Avatar makes sense because I think at a certain point of time, and like the terrible and jarring CGI that is in Lockout.
Yeah, it's pretty bad. But that was made after Avatar. That's 2012.
Yeah, there was no way you would have been able to make Avatar.
Yeah, he was like wanting to make it in the 90s, and there was nothing.
And
it was only then when
Final Fantasy Spirits Within.
Okay.
You've not seen that? No, oh my god! All right, pause the episode. We're gonna go watch another movie.
Yeah, but like it was only when he saw, the effects in Return of the King, I think it was like Gollum, that he went, oh, we have the technology now. Yeah. Let's do this.
We can make it bluer.
Yeah.
And stronger and more Pandora.
Let's get the people who did that to do this.
It's going to cost $6 billion.
Yeah. But in the case of Escape from New York, it was they just thought that people wouldn't want to see it because it was too violent. And then when they wanted to see Halloween, studios are like, oh, actually, maybe they do want to see this weird, violent United States dystopia.
Yeah.
I just don't understand why they keep referring to it as a maximum security prison when it's literally just they put mines around the outside of it and then just set a whole lot of criminals loose in there on each other. That's not maximum security, and it's not a prison. What is it then? It's just some weird... They've just created some extra society that's not... It's a zero security area because they've put no actual surveillance or security in there. So it's Australia 2. Electric Boogaloo. No.
Didgeridoo!
Oh my god. Australia 2 Electric Didgeridoo. Okay.
Great.
Wonderful. Is that the name of our episode?
No.
That's ridiculous.
So yeah, you thought it was over the top and silly, and
no, I just thought it was. It just felt like a cheesy B movie.
Wow.
It's just not very good.
What's not good about it?
The writing, the acting, the effects, the costume, the
costumes are great.
The music.
The music's fantastic. Get out of here.
Production design. There's bits where he like goes through an elevator that's clearly a bit of cardboard that someone's pulling open and closing.
Yeah.
Like, why not just use an actual elevator?
It's probably cheaper.
But like,
you're talking about the sets that are on like the top of the tower, right?
Yeah. It's terrible. It's worse than the Peter Cushing Doctor Who and the Dalek film. That's what their doors look like.
Yeah.
But they've somehow done it better in like a shitty Doctor Who movie.
I'd be careful who you're talking about shitty and Doctor Who in the same sentence, but that's okay.
Oh no. I know for a fact that the person that you're thinking of hates those movies. I enjoy them more than that person does. Yeah, I don't know. It just I don't know. I think I got my hopes up. I think I just was expecting it to be a good movie, and it was still enjoyable.
Yeah, see, like for how you feel,
Mm-hmm.
I find Lockout enjoyable because it's so terrible.
Yeah, well, with Lockout, I felt like, again, the writing, the effects.
The effects are terrible.
Most things were terrible.
Yeah.
But the whole thing was carried almost exclusively by Guy Pearce with a little bit of legwork by Maggie Grace. I felt like he sold it. I literally was watching it going, I never realized Guy Pearce is this good of an actor. He is like carrying this film. Like, I feel like he could put just about anyone else in that role and the movie just collapses. He did a really good job. And I was almost expecting the same to be said of Escape from New York, except I don't think that Kurt Russell was as good in that as he is in The Thing.
True. I find Snake Plissken as a character is interesting because you don't get any, like Guy Pearce, his character Snow gets a little bit more history in the lead up to the movie, which is lead up to him getting sent to prison. Sorry.
Yeah. They filmed scenes like that for Escape from New York.
Yeah.
Like a prequel sequel or preamble. What is it?
Prologue.
Prologue. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then they cut it.
Yeah. Because
audiences found it too long and confusing.
Yeah, and the pacing I think is better the way they've got done.
Yeah.
It's a perfect movie.
Okay.
So the prologue for before Guy Snow gets sent to the prison is that he's working for Secret Service.
Yeah, he's CIA.
CIA, and like someone's been set up to be selling secrets to the wrong side, and then they get assassinated, and then he gets arrested for it. But he's also like delivered the suitcase with the evidence to his mate, who also ends up in the prison, and that's why he wants to break in there, regardless of Maggie Grace being in there, and. Versus, you get this all this set up about him being, on this, that, and the other, where the information you get about Snake throughout the movie is that he was Special Forces, and then he basically went rogue because he just stopped believing in the American dream because it became a fascist state.
Yeah.
And everybody he meets is like, oh, I thought you were dead. So he's like this urban legend within the...
Every person who says, I thought you were dead, to him, dies before the end of the movie.
Yeah.
Every single person who says that line. Like, they get so many people to say it. And what's terrible is I had read that in the IMDb trivia before we watched the movie.
So you could spoil it.
So every time someone said it, I was like, they've been cursed. So, like, literally every time someone said, I heard you were dead, I was like, God damn it! All you had to do was not say those words, and you'd survive.
Did you enjoy Cabby? Did you enjoy Ernest Borgnine?
Yeah, he was fun.
I brought up Ernest Borgnine in the All Quiet on the Western Front episode because he was in the made to TV, made for TV, made to TV.
Straight to DVD.
Yeah, straight to TV remake of the original All Quiet on the Western Front.
Yeah.
Which I think's the more closely related to the book. I can't remember what we said in the podcast episode. But yeah, I love Ernest Borgnine.
Fair enough.
It's just funny. Just like his character in general is hilarious because he's just like a taxi driver who never left New York, even though they built a prison around it. It's like, I've been driving this cab for 30 years. It's like,
I did enjoy that, like, the prisoners or whatever, like, were just putting on, they were just doing musical theatre.
Yeah, they were doing
just
musical.
Just for the fun of it.
Well, you don't know what crimes
Yeah.
that people could have committed. Like, there's a point in time looking at the way things are going now in some of the southern states of the United States with their bizarre law changes.
Yeah.
Some of those people could have just been in there because they did do that.
Right.
You know?
And by that you mean were publicly transgender or cross-dressing.
Yeah.
Yeah, fair enough. And those people might enjoy music. Not to stereotype.
Yeah.
But people who are arrested for being drag queens might also enjoy being in musical theatre.
And Cabby obviously loves it because, you know, he made a big deal about coming downtown to go see the show and just happens to see Snake Plissken wandering around. Some of my favorite characters in that movie are is the Joker ripoff dude. I can't remember the actual thing's name. I'm gonna try and find it. Cabby. I think Brain is hilarious because like just going to prison and just being the smartest person there, and they're like, "Oh, your name's Brain now." It's like, what?
But he's not even smart.
Yeah,
he's
exactly.
He's so stupid, and I like. No offense to Harry Dean Stanton, but like he's not well acted.
Yeah.
He's just like a cardboard character who has no anything good. He keeps flip flopping. On, you know, whose side he's on, but not even, like, intentionally. He's just, like, as someone talks to him, and he's like, oh, yeah, I guess I'm on your side. Oh, I guess I'm on his side. Oh, I don't know. And then he, like, his whole purpose is so that he can direct them through the minefield, and he blows them up twice.
Yeah.
Why?
But he gets gasoline for the Duke's car that is just like a Cadillac with chandeliers attached to it.
He's so stupid. He's a bad character. He's badly acted. He didn't contribute anything. And I didn't care about him. Like, I feel like we're supposed to care when the character, Maggie, like, is like, no, I'm going to stay and, like, make my stand because he was my partner and he's dead now and I'm going to shoot the Duke for him. And then she also dies instantly. Like... It's like, was I supposed to actually give a shit about either of these people?
What about the girl from Chock full of Nuts?
I'd feel bad for the girl from Chock full of Nuts. She seemed nice, and then she just randomly got dragged through the floor by evil, crazy people.
Yeah, I love the mole people. There's this concept that, you know, New York City is a massive place with far too many people living in it, and just it's sort of like emphasized like comic book villain, like twiddling mustache, tying people to train tracks, kind of like insanity of New York.
What we should have been comparing Escape from New York to is just like the whole sequence. Is it in Batman Begins when they like there's a train going around
about the gas?
Yeah. When the scarecrow gas it and it like sets free everyone and
everyone just goes nuts and
because that's what it is. That was a rip-off of Escape from New York.
not Rises, where they wall off an entire city and it's left for like a militarized.
Chris Nolan, what have you been doing?
He's been watching good movies. That's what he's been doing. But yeah, like the I I can't pronounce his name because I'm going to screw it up.
Romero
is the you have 30 seconds to leave or he dies, and the weird hair and the outfits and the walk, like it's all just
they'll just turn and run back into their helicopters.
Yeah, but
So
the other character that stands out, which is hilarious to me rewatching it, is the guy he's got the tracker watch on. So the president's got the tracker watch. And it's just some random homeless dude that they robbed the president when he crash landed in his escape pod.
How did they not notice? Because the whole thing about that is that it's monitoring his vital signs. How did they not notice when it was taken off him?
I don't know.
His vitals would have stopped. And then restarted.
Yeah. I don't know.
It's
just
stupid.
They would have probably counted it down as a weird glitch. They're using 80s technology in the 90s.
It's very stupid. But also they use that in Lockout as well, because she's got like medical trackers inside her or something. They're just like, oh yeah, she's hooked up with this, so we can see her.
Yeah.
She's losing blood, and then just like, oh my god, she's suffocating. She's not got enough oxygen. You've got to find her in 20 seconds. She'll be dead. Like.
See, it's interesting to me. The story, the background story in Lockout, I think is far more interesting than what actually happens on screen. Do you know what I'm referring to?
Everything with the briefcase and stuff?
So you get the briefcase stuff, which is like his
her background, where it's the fact that she's up there to investigate the fact that that they're putting these guys in stasis, but it's causing dementia and brain damage and
it's all this conspiracy that it's for deep space exploration purposes. There's also like one of the bodyguards, again, why I remembered this is when you were talking about Maggie Grace's character suffocating. Hawk is like one of the Secret Service members, and they're told before they're interviewing prisoners that he has to give up their firearms because firearms aren't allowed in the secure area.
Right.
And he takes out his pistol from his ankle holster and then puts it back in, pretending like he was just adjusting his shoe, and doesn't hand it in. And that's the reason the entire thing happens.
Yeah.
And you're like, and he gets too close to him and he's like giving him the prisoner shit because he's, a horny dude and it's probably the first woman he's seen in years and blah, 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 but even though they're in stasis, but then as in, who knows, because he's talking about like what actually shut down and if their brains are still active and so on and so forth. Asking if he had dreams, and it's like, I'll dream of you, and him getting very defensive about it. Yet, if the Secret Service were actually doing that, there's no friggin' way that they'd be in the same room as him. They would have just shoved. It would have been like,
because she was on the other side of the glass.
So why was he protecting? And to me, it seems like they had this idea that it was a setup from the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
And I think they either changed the storyline with writing, or they just, sort of left the side plot sort of alone. But it's like the escaping part takes more precedence in the movie, I find, than the weird undertone side plot of like what's happening.
Yeah. Because that only comes up again then when they find Mace, who's the guy that I was gonna say Snake, that Snow wants to get, and he is exhibiting signs of dementia because he's been in stasis for like 24 hours. Like, he hasn't even been there very long. They're dealing with prisoners who've been in there for who knows how long, and they're all fine.
Yeah, because Snow gets sentenced to 30 years.
Right. So like the people that who have been freed already, that they're like fighting with the whole time, have obviously been there for years.
Yeah.
And this guy's literally just gone up there, and he's got full-on dementia.
Yeah.
And those guys have zero problems.
Well,
I mean,
debatable.
Besides being like maladjusted people, which they probably were before they went in.
So the concept that goes in my brain in regards to what you just said reminds me of the opening monologue by Riddick in Pitch Black. Mm-hmm. And he says, they say your brain shuts down in cryosleep except for the primitive side. No wonder I'm still awake.
Because he's only primitive.
Yeah, because he's a monster. Maybe that's why, that only people that are like actually maladjusted are the only ones that will survive going into this procedure.
That might make sense, yeah, because he was in there like almost under a case of mistaken identity.
Yeah.
Because a police officer called him and he turned around, but he or someone dropped a gun and the gun discharged and killed the police officers. Then they assumed that he shot the police officer.
Which is, I'm not going to go into a rant about firearms, but it's something that can happen based on firing pin types, but I won't get into that because you'll just stare at me for ages and no one will care. No one listening will care. And if you're a person who knows about firearms already, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. Yeah. Anyway, so I don't have to explain it to you.
So it was a weird like coincidence moment that ends up with him arrested. And I mean, that's almost what happens with Snow as well, except that it was clearly set up. And it's really strange because they only show us like what actually happened through like a montage at the end, which is like flashbacks.
Yeah.
Except it's Maggie Grace's character, Emily, is that her name?
Yeah.
Having that.
Yeah, she has a flashback of stuff that she couldn't know what happened.
Yeah, and so there's this whole montage where she's having flashbacks to like the stuff that happened on the ship because she is remembering everything that Mace said so she can find the briefcase that he hid. But then she also has flashbacks to what happened to Snow before he got arrested, which makes no sense. And the whole thing is that like, oh, it's okay, they only thought they saw him shoot the guy because someone had arranged a mirror in a way that made it look like him.
Yeah.
Which is that's nonsense.
Also the fact that it would also only work if the guy was sitting on where he was watching from. So therefore they knew they were being surveilled. Like,
and exactly where they're being surveilled from. Yeah.
A lot of it is sort of like, when you start thinking about it, the threads literally fall apart instantly. You tug on one thing and the whole movie just falls to pieces.
Luc Besson
has made some good movies.
Made some good movies in the 80s and 90s, and then I don't know. I mean, have you seen Lucy?
Yes, I watched Lucy.
I'm gonna say, if anyone listening to this has not seen Lucy, do yourselves a favor and don't ever watch it. It's terrible.
It's interesting that you bring that up.
Oh, okay. I thought you were saying the movie's interesting.
The gripe I have with the Ghost in the Shell movie is the opposite gripe I have with Lucy.
Okay.
So Scarlett Johansson's acting in Lucy is better than the movie deserves.
Right.
But absolutely terrible
in Ghost in
the Shell. And for me, even though they just basically took a bunch of storylines from the movie and the Standalone Complex TV show, anime that came out, basically they stole a bunch of lines and they slapped it into a movie. It annoyed me because she was acting terribly, and I don't know if that was the direction that she was given, but it's just, it's interesting to me that you brought up Lucy, and I was just like, there's such a polar opposite of like...
Lucy is bizarre.
Yeah, she turns into a supercomputer.
Yeah, she Neil brains.
Yeah, she Neil brains.
She Neil brains. She just like hacks into computers with her brain or something. It's nonsense. Don't watch it. Bad movie. But Lockout has some of the same problems where it's like, there's some weird, he's thinking of it like it's this like new high concept sci-fi movie, and it's absolutely not. It's not. And he's made movies like this before, like that were sci-fi, like District 13. Have you seen that?
Is that the one with Bruce Willis?
No. It's just a bunch
of... Oh, it's 13 Blocks, sorry, yeah.
It's just a bunch of French guys doing parkour. It's literally just a bunch of French guys doing parkour.
Is there a plot?
I don't remember.
You don't remember?
I watched two. There's a sequel and I watched both of them. Oh, okay. The second one definitely doesn't have a plot. The first one, I think it is like this, he's like on the run and, trying to get away from it. But it's just some like small French guy doing a whole lot of parkour, like through these just like apartment buildings, shitty apartment buildings.
To go back to some other nuclear history in relation to New Zealand, you get countries like Japan who invent really amazing martial arts. You get the South American martial arts that were created to emulate dance because martial arts were banned. You get China with Kung Fu, and then you get the martial arts of France, which is just running away.
Yeah.
They invented parkour, and it is literally the martial art of running away.
You should watch, because you like action movies. You should watch District 13, or what's it in French, Banlieue 13? You should watch it. I enjoyed it at the time, but you are just watching like 2 hours of a guy doing parkour. Basically.
I would rather watch Hardcore Harry.
There's a really cool sequence where like he's in a bathroom or something, and he like grabs onto a pipe, I think, and it's one of those like little small windows. He just like in one movement just parkours his legs out through it and like kind of sails, and it's actually done. It's not special effects, but irrelevant. Anyway, what I meant by that is that Luc Besson has already made at least one movie where he does like whatever he's trying to do here somewhat well, but he's tried to pair it with this weird sci-fi thing and like just like gone off the rails with nonsense. And the whole thing, like it's like he just wanted to make action movie in space, and then was like, we'll just tie together some some kind of story happens to make them end up there.
Original story, don't steal.
Original story by Luc Besson.
Yeah.
Definitely he's never watched another movie. He's not inspired by anything. This is 100% original. Don't watch John Carpenter movies, because then you'll know it's not. Don't look up the lawsuit. He appealed it, by the way.
Yeah, that's when it cost him more money.
Yeah, it's so funny. So it originally cost him, I think, €80,000. So it was like 50,000 to the studio, 10,000 or 20,000 directly to John Carpenter, and 10,000 to producer or something. And then he appealed it and ended up having to spend €450,000.
Yeah.
So that's fun. But yeah, he plagiarized it. He just straight up ripped a whole load of things from the movie, like the kind of general backstory of he used to be a CIA agent versus he used to be special forces, and then he somehow wound up arrested, and then they are like, oh, we want to send you in, and then you'll be pardoned or whatever, and the person who's, in fairness, one step removed from the president, he didn't just send the president up this time. But she's got the medical thing so that he can track her, and then blah blah blah. This is. I mean, the courts agreed that it's the same movie, so I don't know. I do like some Luc Besson movies. It's a real case of separating the art from the artist for me though at this point, because he's a creepo in real life.
Yeah, there's more and more creeps out there.
Yeah, but like, I mean, one of my favorite movies, and I haven't watched it in a long time because I feel uncomfortable, especially with the director's cut now, is Leon.
Yeah. And
knowing that, because I never read it as like, I understand obviously it's explicitly put in the movie that Matilda has romantic feelings for Leon.
Yeah.
But I always interpret that as like, well, she's a teenager with a crush.
Yeah.
And he's never reciprocating it.
Yeah.
Except it kind of is a little bit in the director's cut, so don't watch that. But knowing that Luc Besson groomed his first wife from when she was 13 and he was in his 30s, and then when she turned 21, he split up with her to date a 20-year-old.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, okay.
Do you know what's even weirder? Bringing up Natalie Portman.
Okay.
So, there's another artist that I used to like a lot, and
this is Moby.
This is the Moby thing.
Moby
For those
thing?
who don't know, Moby is an electronic house artist who got some really massive hits in the early 2000s, and they were in one of them was the beginning of a television show, soundtracks to movies, all of this stuff. And he was really, it was a breath of fresh air for me, small town New Zealander, listening to this music genre that I hadn't heard much of, and, it was very catchy and enjoyable. The Me Too movement happens, and Moby outs himself and says, I was grooming and dating Natalie Portman when she was not 18 years old. And everyone's like, okay. And Natalie Portman's like, what the fuck? That never happened. And then Moby was never heard from again. And it was just like this, what? Like, what was his goal? Like, is he one of those people who just had, like, I have these moments where, in our relationship where we have entire conversations with each other, yet no words ever spoken, and we're not having, like, some sort of weird mind meld. It's just because of the way that my brain works and the way we communicate. It's just like, I'll have an entire conversation with you.
And then I won't know what's happening.
Yeah, you won't know what's happening. Did Moby do that, but with a relationship with Natalie Portman?
He made up a relationship with a teenager?
Was he having... Because you've seen From Dusk Till Dawn, right?
No.
Oh, God. So, Quentin Tarantino's character, this is pre-sucking Salma Hayek's feet, with one of your Yellow Jackets, old... Juliette Lewis, because she plays the young girl in that, and there are moments where he has flashes into, like, you see from the camera's perspective, his world that he visits, where basically all these women are saying grotty shit to him, but obviously it's not real.
Yeah.
Did Moby do that?
I don't know. Was it like an attention thing? But did he not realize that she would...
Yeah.
Like, she's more famous than he is and can say, hey, that's not true.
Yeah.
I don't understand. I just don't... It's very strange. I feel bad for Natalie Portman.
Yeah.
Someone's come out as grooming her when she didn't even, like, know them. She's just like, what? Did we even meet? Like, what is happening?
It's weird when people say stuff that's not real.
She is, by the way,
and the other person can just be like, that never happened.
Yeah.
And you just look like an idiot.
It's so strange. And maybe he's got, like, BPD or something, where he's, like, just invented this whole scenario and sees it as totally different. For context, I've been rewatching Crazy Ex-Girlfriend, which is, like, entirely about that.
Yeah, from what I've seen of that show when I've walked into the lounge while you've been watching it, it's just been... I instantly...
It's a really, really good show.
Yeah.
But very much about how certain conditions, including, when she's diagnosed with his BPD, people, like, psychiatrists and psychologists and stuff have analysed the show and said, this is doing it really well.
Yeah.
But, like, that she has this almost, like, parasocial relationship with people where she, like, perceives the relationship as, like, way more than what it actually is.
Yeah.
Which can happen. And maybe it's a scenario like that where, like, they had, like, some interactions, but he, like, perceived it as, like in his own head it was way more than it actually was.
Yeah.
Either way, Natalie Portman seems like a very well-rounded person for someone who was a former child actor, which is good for her, you know. But it's so weird. That's such a weird situation.
So bizarre.
If anyone was going to groom her, it would have been...
Yeah, exactly. But it's the same with the whole deal with Fifth Element.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's also another, like, what? Really?
Which deal? The fact that his wife was playing the blue alien when she was 21 and he broke up with her for Mila Jovovich, who was 20?
Yeah.
Is that the scenario you're talking about?
Yeah. Just men out there being creeps.
Yeah. Yeah, he's a creepy guy. I mean, the fact that, you know, two of his most successful English language films were about a 14-year-old girl falling in love with an adult assassin and about a Born Sexy Yesterday lady who knows nothing about anything but falls in love with Bruce Willis.
Yeah.
It's a little suspicious.
I
do love both those movies though, so it's difficult.
Well, it's like the whole thing with the pianist.
Yeah.
And it's like, why are you Adrian Brody, shut up, bro. Like,
please, Adrian Brody.
yeah.
Please don't support Roman Polanski.
Yeah. Polanski's a creep too. And it's, again, like, at what point do you have to... Like, the Weinstein Company made a lot of good movies, but that dude is a piece of shit and deserves to burn in hell for all the time.
Yeah.
Um,
yeah, it's very difficult. And I think, I mean, with Lockout...
how much good Bill Cosby did for the black community.
Mm.
And yet he was out there...
Absolute creep.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of them out there. I mean,
Like,
I have it with Moon as well.
Yeah.
Moon is one of my favourite films, and obviously Kevin Spacey is one of the only two actors in that movie. And
I'm not going to get into the
Kevin
Kevin
we've
Spacey
gotten into
thing.
the Kevin Spacey thing before. We'll leave it. But yeah. Anyway, I don't think
dismissed on Kevin Spacey.
Lockout wasn't directed by Luc Besson, and he only co-wrote it based on his original idea.
Yeah, his original idea.
His original idea. So I feel like we can remove him a little bit from Lockout. But yeah, I thought it was an enjoyable, shitty movie.
There's, like you said earlier, talking about Guy Pearce holding the movie together, there are some absolutely bangers of lines by him.
Yeah.
Some of them are real creepy in this day and age. Like when they fall through the vent and she lands like facing his crotch. She's like, oh, you don't have to. You know, simple thanks is...
Disgusting.
Yeah, that's gross.
I mean, original idea by Luc Besson.
Yeah.
But
my favourite is like when he gives her the map and is like, hey, I gotta go. You go find the escape pod.
Yeah.
Here's an apple and a gun. Don't talk to strangers. Like, that line to me is so fantastic. Because it's just hilarious. Because it's just like he's treating her like a child.
Yeah, yeah.
But in the most bizarre way possible.
Yeah.
Like,
they both did a lot of prep, by the way, for that movie, so they could do as much of their own stunts as possible.
Yeah.
Which is cool. I like that. I like that Maggie Grace was real intent on doing that. 'Cause she's not an action person. She has previously worked on movies with Luc Besson, though. Taken and Taken too. She plays a girl who's taken, and guess what she plays in Lockout? Girl who is taken. But I feel like she has a lot more to contribute to Lockout because she actually like is intelligent and is like trying to do shit and also really cares because there's a bit where like he puts her on the pod to escape.
Yeah.
And then she's like, no, like there's innocent people here and I need to, you know, if I go, they're gonna just blow up the whole ship because they only care about me.
Yeah.
So I liked her character. I liked her character more than most of the characters in Escape from New York because they all exclusively only cared about themselves, including Snake, who only was doing the whole thing because they put like bombs in him that were going to explode if he didn't do it in a certain time. Like, he didn't give a shit about anything. You know, at least the characters in Lockout cared about something other than themselves. Also the president, I do like that Snake was like, you know, he checked with the president, did he care about it, and then he's like, well, then I'm going to destroy the whole world and stop you from creating world peace by destroying this tape because you don't care that these random criminals who didn't give a shit about you died while trying to escape. Like, why would he? Also...
But this... I will agree that, Snake's character seems very disenfranchised by the world that he's helped, like, sacrifice his life to protect.
Yeah.
And it comes to that, you know, this, obviously with the sequel and the unmade third movie, which possibly could have been what Lockout was very similar to because the working title was Escape from Earth. Or it could have been Escape from America, depending on the, you know, unwritten version of the sequel.
Mm-hmm.
And it's very, very odd. But the disenfranchised of Snake is really the standout point of his character. To me, anyway. Yeah.
But he just really doesn't give a shit about anyone. But no one does. Not a single person there gives a shit about anyone else.
What's her face loves Brain so much.
Yeah, she does love Brain, and she does decide to stay and sacrifice herself for Brain. So that's
to try and kill Isaac Hayes.
Yeah.
We haven't spoken about Isaac Hayes at all. which is interesting because I think
he's the Duke.
Number one, the man. Interesting guy, because you know about the whole South Park thing, eh?
What South Park thing?
Because he voiced Chef for years.
Oh, right, okay.
And then they took the piss out of every other religion. He was perfectly happy with it, and then they attacked Scientology, and then he quit, and so they turned him into a pedophile and had him killed, and then he got brought back as a zombie, so they killed him again, just to, like, prove their point of, like, you either play the game forever or you don't play at all.
South Park is a whole thing. I'm not a fan.
Yeah.
South Park. I watched South Park a bit when I was younger, but, like, at a certain point you realise that the whole point of South Park is that they're gonna just make fun of everything, and they just make, but not like they're not making any actual social commentary. They're not.
It has been
in the past, maybe, but they've just evolved into making fun of anyone who cares about anything.
Yeah.
So it's like, rather than actually do anything to try and improve the world or help or do anything, they're going to just make that something else to make fun of.
The later seasons of South Park, from the stuff that I've watched, is basically, let's just copy what's happening on the news and make it topical so people, like, read it from another point of view.
That's always what they did.
Yeah.
Because they make the episode that week or whatever, which is unusual. But the whole point of South Park seems to just be, at this point, like, caring about anything is stupid, so let's make a dumb joke about it. And then it's like, well, what, you're not actually making any commentary. Because if you're making a social commentary, you'd be saying, you know, here's how we fix things. But they just want to shit on literally everyone.
Yeah.
And it's just stupid. What's the point?
True.
South Park. Yeah, anyway. I did like that we got Donald Pleasance again getting to draw on his experience of being an actual prisoner of war in real life, because it's the second time we've done a movie where he's had to do that.
Yeah.
They just love casting him as a prisoner of war because he's done it. Also, he's inexplicably British as the United States of America president. So, like, apparently he was so self-conscious about it that he came up with an idea of, like, a whole background where the United States, in this dystopia, they've rejoined the British Empire, so the president no longer need to be a natural-born citizen and stuff like that. And then John Carpenter's like, yeah, that's interesting, but it would distract from the story, so let's just never explain or mention the fact that you've got a British accent. So no one ever acknowledges that he's just a British American president for no reason, which I thought was fun. They also, the role of president was pitched to him as the love child of Ronald Reagan and Margaret Thatcher.
Yep.
So that explains why he doesn't give a shit about anyone.
Yeah.
Because of course he doesn't.
Take the Falklands back.
God. One of the things I thought was really funny for looking at the IMDb trivia for Escape from New York was that computers that were able to do 3D wireframe imaging were too expensive for their budget. So, like, all the times you see the like on the helicopter stuff where they've got the wireframe graphics of the city, what they did was they just built a model of the city and painted those on.
Yeah, no.
And they just filmed it. And then, after this movie, they repainted that model and used it for Blade Runner. Just the same model of New York. But I just love that they were like, it's too expensive to have a computer to do graphics in it.
Like,
so let's just put some tape on this model.
The acceleration of technology is absolutely bonkers when you think about the phone you're currently looking at to look at trivia for this is more powerful than everything that got man to the moon.
Yeah.
Like, that was handwritten code. There's a really famous photo of the lady who, the lady which is, like, standing out, I can't remember her name. In this
was it Jack Black's mom?
Yeah, was it Jack Black's mom?
Jack Black's mom.
Who hand wrote all the code that,
She hand wrote a whole lot of code, and then it was, like...
taller than she was.
There was a great... I want to find the exact sentence I read about it. Because it was like, she insured the it was the Apollo 13 mission she worked on.
Yeah.
And it was like, you know, she went to work and she saved the lives of these astronauts and did all this new calculation because everything has to be recalculated. So it was like this woman who did all this, and then she went to the hospital and gave birth to Jack Black.
Yeah.
I was like, what?
Yeah. And now you know the rest of the story.
His name, Judith Love Cohen.
There you go.
But yeah, it's just, I can't remember what, it was some meme, but it was just like the sentence where it was like, you know, she did all this on this day, and then she went to a hospital, and and just gave birth, and it was like, I gave birth to Jack Black. And you're just like, at the end of the story, you're like, wait, she what?
Yeah.
That Jack Black?
And that little boy grew up to be Jack Black. And now you know the rest of the story.
Yeah, it's so good. Yeah, I don't remember where I read that, but it was just a fun sentence. But yeah, what were you saying about her or about another woman who worked on?
Just technology in general has gotten so like to the point of just ridiculousness.
Yeah, but it's so funny watching movies from like the 70s and 80s trying to show what future technology looks like, because it's terrible.
Yeah.
It's like, is this the future technology he would have in 1997?
But it's the same with like,
you know, 90s I suppose weren't too advanced, but like
the Alien franchise with like still having CRT monitors, and like the way the readouts work. You know, there's older science fiction movies that have like still have reel to reel in them. You look at the like Star Trek is very on the cusp of like futuristic stuff. Like everything in Star Trek is futuristic. Where some of the older ones are just, the technology is like not caught up whatsoever. And it's just like we're still using things that make no sense because we don't use them now. Even Blade Runner is a little, like the original Blade Runner is a little bit like that, where like the retro futurism, which is like an entire genre now, thanks to Alien.
I found the sentence about Jack Black. So it's Judith Love Cohen, who helped create the abort guidance system which rescued the Apollo 13 astronauts, went to work on the day she was in labor. She took a printout of the problem she was working on to a hospital. She called her boss and said she finished the problem, and then gave birth to Jack Black.
Nice. That's dedication.
So she's in the hospital with her printout working on this problem to save these astronauts, and then she's like, called her boss like, oh yeah, I solved it, here's the solution, and then she's like, oh, sorry, I'm in labor, and just gives birth to Jack Black. Hilarious.
Any other trivia?
Probably. I'm sorry, I got distracted by the Jack Black trivia.
It's alright.
I think we've talked about a bunch of stuff. The narration at the beginning of Escape from New York is the computer voice.
Yeah.
It's Jamie Lee Curtis.
Awesome.
Uncredited. Kurt Russell has said that Escape from New York is the favourite of all his films he's ever worked on, and Snake Plissken is his favourite character that he's ever played.
Yeah, I'd agree with him.
Yeah, I know you would. He also decided to wear the eye patch last second before shooting. He didn't tell John Carpenter about it, but John Carpenter was like, yeah, that looks good, and let him keep it. Which is fun. And, oh yeah, that's about it, I think. So the only trivia I took down for the other movie was about the lawsuit, because I thought it was funny. Budget and box office, so for Escape from New York, the budget was $6 million, which apparently was the biggest budget John Carpenter had ever gotten to work with.
That's a lot in the 80s.
And box office, they made $25 million. Whereas Lockout, the budget was $20 million, and they made $32 million. But only half of that came from the US. So most of it was international audience. Yeah, that's about it, to be honest. Do you have anything else you want to add about the movies?
No.
The filmos?
I'm good. Good. I can't wait for the next episode.
The next episode? Well, we've spoilered it for people that we are going to do Escape from LA, but now you guys have 2 weeks to guess what we're going to compare it to.
Yeah.
Which is fun. Yeah, so thanks very much for listening. You can find us on social media. We're on Twitter and Instagram at @ItTakesTwo_pod, or Facebook at @ItTakesTwoPod. We're also on Tumblr, but I've forgotten our handle, and no one goes on Tumblr anyway. Our website is ittakes2.co.nz. We have a Discord server you can join, so you can find the link to that in the description or on our website or on our Twitter bio, and we have a YouTube channel also if you want to go there. At the moment we're still uploading our backlog of episodes, so we haven't caught up to today, but we do put out some YouTube shorts every now and then.
Yeah, just for a little extra content.
Yeah, just a little bit.
Thank you all for listening, and I hope to catch you next time.
Goodbye.